week 11, part 2. It is Halloween. Recording this to the cloud. And who better to have come on Halloween than my good friend Insung Jung, coming to us from an island off the coast in Korea, where she just moved maybe 6 or 8 months ago after retiring from International Christian University in Tokyo, which I had the lovely chance to visit about 9 years ago. And it's been 9 years, believe it or not.
9 years.
It's 2013, it's now 2012, and it was September 2013 when I visited, and I had a great time. So we'll get right to it. So tonight, Insung, we're going to ask you a bit about, the influence that brought you to this field, about how the field has changed or transitioned from your early days to what it is now, and about where you see the field going. So let's first start with, what brought you into this field in the 80s. While I was at the University of Wisconsin, you were here at Indiana University. And by the way, I could count on my hands the most distinguished alumni of the IST program, and she'd be on one of the fingers somewhere. And I won't say which finger. No, she'd be on my thumb. No, Insung is really, if we think about the field of instructional systems technology or educational technology or instructional technology, whatever you want to label the field, Insung would be one of the leaders that you would mention. As this field has evolved over the past 30 years, she's been at the cusp of many of these changes and done edited books, done edited journals, done single-authored books, and technical reports. In the past 15 years, she's probably had one book per year that you have to buy, be aware of, and share with your colleagues. One of them that I keep close to me on my desk is Distance and Blended Learning in Asia by Colin Latcham. Is that how you say his name, Colin?
Yes,
and
Colin.
Colin and Insung. And this book was published by Routledge, I believe. And she also has a book with Charlotte Gunnar-Wardena about cultural issues and online learning. And I tried finding that book downstairs, and I didn't have enough time, but it's down there, I'm sure. Maybe Insung has a copy of that book that she might be able to pull up and share that book. You want to grab a couple of your books, Insung, and share those with us so they get a full sense. Grab a couple of yours so that they can see what you have been up to, including some of the recent things. You've got 2 with Springer recently, I believe, a handbook related to distance education, maybe? Yeah.
Oh, the handbook one, the printed version is not yet. It's not published yet. It's online.
So that's all.
Fully.
Is it going to come in print, or?
It's going to come in print next year.
Okay.
But then most of the chapters are available online. It's open educational resources, so you can everyone can download. It will be really useful for the graduate student to do their research, because it provides all different kinds of all aspects of open distance and digital education. From K to 12 up to workplace training and adult education, higher education, of course, and by very experienced scholars to young scholars.
You wouldn't believe how many people last week were at a conference. They said, I have a chapter in Insung's new book. You have a lot of people in that book. Why don't you tell us about some of those people that you have in that book?
So before we move on to the book, this is an area that I have been working in when I was at ICU, which is a liberal arts college. So this is about the liberal arts education. By the way, liberal arts education is very much related to our educational technology field, because it emphasizes creativity and collaborative learning. So all those the learning strategies we have been emphasizing is in liberal arts education, and I have distance and blended learning in Asia. And also quality assurance have been one of my topics. And this is the culture and online learning.
Right, that one.
Yes, I couldn't find other books, so maybe both should be okay.
Like I said, one book a year.
Not that many, but you ask a question about how I became to be interested in this field.
Yeah.
Yes. When I first came to ICU in 1984, I wasn't sure what I was going to study.
Wait a minute. And to ICU in 84 or to IU in 84?
No, IU. IU, 1984.
And all of you who are listening and watching the tape later, ICU stands for International Christian University. IU stands for Indiana University. Oh, you know that. Okay.
Right. So IU 1984.
Okay.
And that time, I just heard from one of my professors that that's the area for the future. So that's how I decided to come to IU to study IST, Instructional System Technology. And then eventually I developed interest, especially in distance education for adult learners, because that time, distance education was considered as a second-rate education, backdoor education, as someone mentioned.
Wedemeyer, we talked about Wedemeyer earlier,
right.
And Tony met him, so we talked about him earlier. His book, Learning at the Back Door. Right.
So was considered as a backdoor education. It was not proper. It was not offered at the higher 4-year university level. It was a 2-year university, and then they began to offer distance education in many of the Asian countries that time. So I became really interested in the potential of distance education, how we could design distance education in a more cost-effective way, because cost was a lot of issue. I mean, the very important issue in many Asian countries that time, considering the high price of higher education, go into the higher education. So I studied. My focus was, even though I was taking various courses, my focus was, how can I design the textbook, especially textbook, to promote self-directed learning of distance learners, adult learners. So that was how I became to be interested in distance education. And then eventually, distance education based on textbook moved to TV-based, other kind of multimedia-based, and nowadays online is becoming the major platform for distance education. So everybody now are studying online education, how we can design online education and learning environment as a whole. But that time it was very rare. So I was maybe one of 2 or 3 people who studied distance education in early 1990s. But now I have a lot of people, we have a lot of people, most people are studying online education.
Wait. One of the few people in Korea or in the world or at Indiana?
Indiana, their distance education was taught by adjunct professor. I mean, Dr. Bola.
Harbans Bola, my friend.
Harbans Bola, right.
Yeah, smart guy.
He was the only one who taught the concept of distance education that time. maybe from more philosophical perspectives.
Right.
Yes,
Well, he was
yes.
working with the Global South at the time. Wasn't called the Global South, but trying to help people in
Right.
India and Bangladesh and whatnot. And I was taking correspondence and TV courses to get into grad school at the time when you arrived at Indiana, and then I developed a TV course or helped develop one on critical thinking. So I got in, we had parallel careers in some ways, you know. We were some of the first people in the distance and then in e-learning or blended learning and all this area. So we both saw our careers positively impacted by the changes in society, because there were more opportunities for those in the field to publish, to get grants, to do research, to do books, to present at conferences and be invited to present. People wanted to know, what is this? What can I do? What can I do to blend? How can I do e-learning? And so your career took off in different ways, both working at the, what is that, IGNU, right? Or not IGNU, the Korean...
KNOU?
KNOU,
Korean National Open University.
Open U, right. And then Ewha Women's University, and then ICU, International Christian University. Did you also spend some time on a Fulbright or somewhere with UNESCO or something in between here?
I didn't stay there, but then I worked with UNESCO people both in Bangkok and Paris, and so, also World Bank project team.
Right, yeah. So you've had many different places where you've influenced, but also been influenced by. And here's Aptar's coming back, just so you know, she's going to pop back in here from her car. What would you say was the most impactful for you in terms of places that you worked with, technical reports or books or projects that made a difference in the world?
I think the quality assurance project that I did with many people from all over the world, with the support from IDRC, which is a Canadian research grant foundation. And actually, we focused on the distance education quality assurance framework for distance education in Asia. So due to why we are doing this project, we've been working with the government officials, policy makers in Mongolia, in China, Indonesia, in Malaysia, and some other countries. And I think our team was actually working with them, very closely with them. Tian was one of the team members, and we had one from Pakistan. He has been working with the Pakistan, the government officials. So we were able to, while we were doing the research in the field, we were able to contribute to the policy changes in several Asian countries. So, and then eventually we work with the UNESCO, and I was invited by CHIA, which is Americans, the states, the Quality Assurance Agency, right? CHEA, CHIA.
Right. And so Tian Belawati, you mentioned, from Indonesia. She ran what was called the largest University of Terbuka, right? Something like that.
Terbuka, yes.
Terbuka,
yes.
Yeah. So
right. She was a rector previously, and she was a president of ICDE, the International Council for Distance Education Universities.
Yeah, she's described it. She started out very low and moved very high. You know, the initial was just the recorder. And same with Melinda Bandalaria in the Philippines, started out very low level. Distance education field enables people, because it grew so fast, it enables people to take on higher and higher, just like Abtar's been able to do. All of us has benefited by the growth in the field, because they needed people who knew about the field early on, who know the history and can build on that. And you were able to assume higher positions, right?
And compared to other regions, maybe Asia has more women scholars, leading scholars in the field, scholars as well as, the policy makers. in distance education, open and distance education.
You know, in 2008, I was asked to run a conference or help run eLearn conference, and they wanted to have a strand on e-learning in Asia. And, you know, we got people coming from all over the world to present at that conference and be part of that conference. Like, you know, Okwali came, and we had people coming from Thailand, like, you know, To, my good friend in Thailand, and other, and Sanjaya Mishra and others. You were able to influence everybody in different countries. How did you get so connected to people in Bhutan, in Indonesia, in you know, all parts of Southeast and Eastern Asia? They said you're the one that knew more than anyone. How was that so? How is that possible?
I think you know, just like you, I think you haven't done more, but then I try to organize kind of teams and do some research project or some kind of small scale or large scale project together. So it's not just one time meeting, but we try to expand, and I ask them to bring the experienced people as well as new ones, so that we are not just get together. Familiar faces, we always see some familiar faces, but at the same time we see new faces. So it expands and we influence, we learn together. I think that has been my kind of strategy.
Yeah, you've organized for special issues, you've organized for books, you've organized for conferences, you organized for technical reports with UNESCO and World Bank and other things, and the book here, Distance Education, Distance and Blended Learning in Asia. You know, you've had so many of these where you've gotten groups of people to come together to contribute, and it's through those edited volumes, I find, that the networks spring to life and continue forever, because you've edited somebody's chapter and they're so grateful for it that they're your friend for life. And you know, you've done many of those projects, and so that's been one way I think your network has grown. And you've mentioned some other things as well, but you know, can you tell my students what conferences are available for them that they might think about going to, where those networks are possible? What should they look at for conferences?
Okay, I think you already know ACT and some other conferences in the States, but there are some conferences in other countries, other regions. And one very actively organizing conferences in Europe. Europe, they have the European Distance Education Association Conference and
Eden,
ICD
right?
conference.
Eden.
Yeah, right.
And the second one was what?
Second one was, well, what did I say? I forgot. ICD conference is usually conducted in one of the European countries. So ICD one is there. And then there are some regional conferences in Germany. The Olaf, who was the chief editor of the handbook of this open and distance and digital education. And he has been organizing open educational resource, some conferences related to open thinking, open OER, OEP. And then Turkey is also organizing some of the small scale conferences. So I think there are conferences in Europe. And then another area that Asia, some Asian countries have been organizing. AACU, OU is another one. Association of Asian Open Universities. It will be conducted soon in Jeju Island in Korea. So they find nice places like Bali, for example, and Jeju and some other nice places in Asia. And it's a very comprehensive, large scale the Open and Distance Education Conference. And there are some other conferences in Asia as well. So I want you to look at not just the conferences in within the States, but also Asia and Europe. And there is an online conference as well. And TCC, which is organized by University of Hawaii, it's an open, the online virtual conferences. I think they are more than 20 years and some years, more than decades. So this is a very high.
Could I get that again? Insung, the one by Hawaii?
Yeah.
TCC. What is that?
Curtis Ho was running it for a long time. Yeah, right. I just saw him last week, and he was at ACT in Las Vegas. Virtual sand. I'd rather have real sand to put my toes in, but okay, virtual sand.
Right.
So
I think they are collecting. They are now open for the proposal. I just saw a call for the proposals yesterday. So that online conference is also a good opportunity for you to present and then listen to others and discuss. And many graduate students actually go there as a first step.
What does Insung? I can't get it. What does TCC stand for, if you don't mind? Is that something you can share in the chat?
Yeah, let me, because I'm using the iPad, let me just.
And so
yes, I will do that. Yes.
Okay, we got that.
Yeah. So
I think Umida have shared it.
Okay. Yeah. Umida's got it there. There we go. Yeah. Thanks, Umida.
That's nice. Thanks.
So we're going to talk about my classes on learning environments. Before we switch over to that, Abtar made a comment here in the chat that the conference in Jeju is going on right now. Abtar, you want to comment on anything before we start talking about learning environments?
No, I'm good for now.
Okay.
Thanks.
So, and we also need to have students ask questions. So make sure, I'll just ask this general question, and we'll go to the students here in a second, because I know you need to go in about 20 minutes or so for your other meetings. So I want to give you a break between meetings. So Insung, we're studying how to build effective learning environments in this class. And it's really the intersection of many disciplines, psychology and educational technology and social cultural theory and, educational change process. What principles would you include if you were designing a learning environment for the first time? What things would be part of your umbrella package in terms of the design of such an environment? What would you include?
I think I like to connect that question to my recent publication, Open Thinking.
Yes, please, because that's a sign. I forgot we're supposed to talk about that article, so please.
Yes, people, in many cases, people believe some people are more closed, has a more closed thinking style, and then another people will have a more open thinking style. But our assumption was that open thinking is not something, it's stable. It will develop due to how you design the learning environment. One way, I was curious, as many people think, talking about we should use OER, and then we introduce open educational practices, and what's good to introduce that kind of OEP, OER. And I thought maybe that OEP environment will help students develop open thinking. So open thinking, not as a static concept attribute, but as a dynamic attribute which has multiple dimensions, and it's a learning outcome as a result of OEP or OER use, or different kinds of open educational practices like linking, to scholars all over the world. That will actually promote open thinking. So I want you to think about yourself before you come to this class, Kurt's class, and then after you finish this class, and you had an experience of looking, talking with people from different countries, different regions, and who have been studying in different fields. So going through this experience, this learning design, intentionally, I'm sure that Kurt intentionally put these opportunities into his class. So that will make you to accommodate more openly to the changing world or different perspectives, new way of learning. And then you will, you want to collaborate more, maybe you want to share more, and you become more open to cultural diversity as well. So I think it's very important for learning designers, instructional designers, to consciously think about how to promote open thinking, which has a multi-dimensions in your class, by introducing some open educational practices. And that was the essence of open, the philosophy, belief behind this open thinking scale development. So one thing that I like to emphasize is to pay attention to the open, how to promote open thinking through your class.
Do you have an item or two or three that you could put in the chat for us from that scale, just so we get a sense of the scale? I know it's assigned for this week, for week 11. So do take a look at Insung's article this week. The scale is maybe at the end of that article that you designed.
Scale, yes, scale. Sorry, I'm using two different screens. So let me just. I thought students had some of the items. Okay.
And how long did it take you to develop a new scale? Because the scale development is never easy.
Right. So we spent about 2 years to develop the scale, but this year I'm doing another study to validate, apply in different settings. This scale begins with 57 items. Now it has 27. So it's rather easy to apply. And the questions, sorry. So we have 27 questions, for example, relate to openness to new perception. We ask students, sorry about that. Let me check.
I developed the scale a few decades ago called Social Constructivism and Active Learning Environment Scale, a scale, but I never could get decent subscale reliability. I had 8 subscales to it. Do you have subscales in this open?
Yes, subscale, we have 6 dimensions, dimensions. One is openness to multiple perspectives. Another one is openness to new way of learning. Another one is openness to collaboration, openness to sharing, openness to change, openness to cultural diversity. So we have 6 very strong, the fit, the model fit.
How large was a sample that you
sample? We use 610.
Okay.
Sample size was pretty good, and from more than 20, I think 20 different countries. And this year we are focusing on 3 countries: Korea, Japan, and United States. So we want to find out, open thinking is influenced by many factors, not just the OEP. Right? There are cultural there are individual factors, maybe cost factors, institutional factors, so cultural factors. So we try to find out which factor is the most important. Preliminary data analysis show us that technology acceptance acceptance of individual students, and exposed to consciousness to OEP is very important.
Open education
So-
practices for my students who don't
Right,
know what OEP
right.
is.
Right.
And
The
so
conscious,
Aptar wants to know, do you have Malaysia in your sample? People from Malaysia take in the sample?
yeah, I do have some Malaysian students. I
Yeah,
did
yeah.
have.
So what's the audience? What's the purpose or mission? Is it to help K-12 teachers and teacher training so they're more open and open-minded and able to, share their resources? Was it teacher training related, or is it in a more higher education institution, or is it just for the general public?
The data was collected from higher education university students, but I think it can be applied to K-12 situation as well. I mean, teachers could use this scale to design more consciously, looking at some design aspects of their course, if they are interested in open thinking, OEP, in the course design. So it's not particularly at one level. For now, maybe higher education will be the focus, but it could be applied to different levels.
It's going to have huge payoffs all around the world. I mean, this is like the number one thing that people are looking for today, because it combines both the diversity, equity, and inclusion interests along with the open education and online learning. It's kind of like this intersection of everything that's happening. So that's why I was fascinated to hear the title and to read your article. And the article's in Dropbox for this class. So if you haven't read it, just look for it. It's indexed by last name of the author. So you'll be able to find it there.
If any of you are interested in applying this scale, let me know. And actually, I had a few requests who wants to use this scale in applying to their research. So please let me know.
So while Insung has retired, she's not stopped researching. She's just stopped, put a pause on teaching, other than tonight, where she's helping out with us. Thank you very much. But you've studied many more things besides open thinking. Before I go to student questions, just briefly, the topics that you've been researching over the past decade or two, just so they know or are aware of the different topics. Why don't you just mention a few?
As I said, quality assurance was one. Another one that I was interested in, some cultural differences. Because when I was at ICU, International Christian University, we had students from different countries all over the world, actually. And then the Japanese students, there is a very typical Japanese students, but as well as student returnees from who lived in different countries. So I could see some cultural differences in their learning styles and belief, and even raising hands, as Tony mentioned of a Chinese students. But the Japanese students are very quiet, the typical Japanese students. But then they write really well. And their collaboration style is quite different. Some Korean students, they are different. So I developed an interest in cultural issues, and then studied how cultural issues affect students, even the stress in collaboration. Some students feel very stressed if I give them a collaborative project. They don't like it, they hate it. So the teaching effectiveness survey, the score will go down if I introduce collaborative project too many times. And then I was also interested in how those the cultural aspects affect their way of collaboration itself. The process is different. For example, European students spend more time and use this discussion function in Wiki, for example, whereas Korean students or students from some Asian countries, they focus more on products. So they will show me how they edited each other's work. instructors wasn't able to see any of those process. They were able to see the product. They will use, for example, the word processor, and each of them work separately and then put them together. And then they support American student labor, division of labor is a way of collaboration. So the meaning of collaboration, the process of collaborative work was quite different. So I would say another topic that I was interested in was a cultural influence.
You also did gender research, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
In online learning. What did you find about gender? Do you remember?
The gender differences become weaker and weaker over the past years. But at the beginning, like 10 years, 20 years ago, at the beginning, gender differences in terms of using different technologies. The female students tend to use more actively than male students. I mean, in my research context. And then, but then there was a gender kind of the role, the female students tend to think, those STEM area is for the man. Kind of the bias was there at the beginning, but then now the gender differences are quite difficult to find in many of my studies. So maybe there have been changes.
We found that too in terms of early on in some of my studies involving looking at sharing resources, very male dominated back in the early 2000s, because many were computer science instructors with tenure, and those teaching online were computer science instructors and engineering with tenure, and mostly men. And just a few years later, it started equalizing between men and women teaching in these online and blended learning environments, and also sharing the resources with other people in Merlot and other tools for sharing online. So it's a huge male emphasis early on that has changed, which is great. In fact, yes, more female than male are teaching in online environments now, maybe with using different approaches. That would be also interesting to see who's building more social, emotional connectedness with students, who's building communities and all that. I want to let my students or Aptar and or ask questions for the last 5-10 minutes that we have with you. So Megan was the first one jumping in before, and so was Sunmei. I'm going to let Megan get the first crack because Sunmei went first last time. Megan, you want to ask a question of Insung?
I don't know that I have any questions right now. I just was, taking it in and listening and enjoying it. I mean, it is just what you said there at the end. As somebody who's in, STEM education, that's always really interesting to, look at those gender differences and see what's going on there. But no, I don't have any questions right now, but thank you so much for.
So Megan's in Philadelphia teaching math and doing her dissertation. She's in my class tomorrow night too. She's writing a dissertation proposal. So
yeah,
I like to share one study that one of my former students did with the STEM education in Egypt. And
I was just invited to Egypt. Is it good? I'm going to American U of Cairo. Have you been there?
Oh yeah. No, I didn't have a chance. Her study was focusing, did one case study with one STEM high school there, and they don't have any textbooks. They use OER as a textbook. And so the very interesting finding was the students actually helping teachers to select a good OER for their classes. So, if you are interested, I can connect you to her, Iman, who is doing the doctoral study right now, and she is also focusing on OER and STEM education. She developed a model to explain that pedagogical and some other cultural aspects. there.
Yeah, I would love that. I did not use the only thing I used my textbook for with my students was for like their homework problems. Otherwise, I never used the textbook ever. I made my own lesson completely, it was face to face when I taught high school. I'm talking about when I taught high school, but I never used the textbook. I designed my own lessons from scratch using bits and pieces, but I put things together. I never followed the textbook.
Wow.
There you go. But yeah, that'd be very interesting. I would love to read
this case is not at the individual teacher's level. It's the whole school is using OER as a textbook. So it was very interesting.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, I will give her contact information to Kurt. So that
thank
Kurt
you so much. That's great.
Sure.
Thanks.
So Sunme is also Korean. She got an engineering degree, and her husband got an engineering degree in Korea and moved to US and does mobile apps for math. And she helped Paul Kim create the Smile Project. So Paul Insung. She worked with Paul she's at Stanford.
Really?
She's like So
Yeah.
Sunme?
Yeah, nice to meet you. And then actually everything is just so interesting to me. And then especially I really like open thinking. So that's really great concept. And then just curious about how to improve open thinking for our students, especially I have 2 high school students. I really want to they improve their open thinking, but I don't know. I really want to design a learning environment for them.
Right. This one, the first study that is the paper is the clarify the concept open thinking, and then second study that I'm doing now is what factors affecting the development of open thinking. So that might be you might be interested in that study, but I'm not sure when I will have definite answer for that. But I think one way would be exposed to open educational practices by you provide some kind of environment that will they can feel it. If they feel this is kind of common, then without knowing it, I think they will be able to improve their open thinking.
So do you think that I can help them as a mother? It's not, from school. Definitely.
Yeah, I think so, because it's not, as I said, it's not static. Many people think they are born with either open or closed, which is not true. I think open thinking is the impact of whole environment. If you have parents who have open-minded and they provide openness to their lives, then the children will develop open thinking.
I think
that's
Dr. Jung should come to my school and then just teach other teachers as well, and then work together, right?
So
I think it's important.
So Ga has a question. He's in our business school, and our business school is famous. And he says, "Hi, Professor Insung. At what stage should online students be trained for learning skills such as collaboration and self-directed learning? Most of the programs I am in or work for assume that students have different skills, but the reality is far different. That students have these skills, but the reality is far different. Some programs have orientation sessions, but they're a little too late in that regard to help for collaboration, to help for self-directed learning. So there's assumption they have it. They don't necessarily have those skills. What can be done? Is that right, Ga? Is that what you're getting at?"
Yes, thank you.
I'm not sure which one will work better, but there are a few approaches to develop certain skills that are necessary for online learners or distance learners. One way is to, before they begin any kind of distance learning, you provide some kind of training sessions. It could be online. When you develop at least at the introductory level, what collaboration means, how you do it, what contributions, what roles you have to play, kind of very basic training. And then after that, you actually attend classes. Another way is to integrate within the assignment. For example, if you have a collaborative work that you need to do with some of the classmates, then a teacher will include how to do it, like specific manuals, or giving them to discuss the roles with some rubrics. So it's more individual teachers' design. Depending on those. So that's another approach. So there are, as a large universities, open distance universities, they will adopt the first one. But then many of the universities, like dual, the universities that offer online classes, plus in addition to face-to-face, they will let individual teachers to help students to do it. So I think a more practical way would be integrate into your class to support students' skills, but it has some limitations.
So thank you for that question. We have Omira left from Uzbekistan, as well as Abtar, and you only have about 5 minutes before you need to run. So Omira, do you want to pose a question or a comment?
I don't know if it's question or comment. Thank you so much for your great reflections on your research. And I became interested in your culture and online learning book.
Mm-hmm.
I see the last chapter says cultural approach to research and online learning. I wonder what was your takeaway from this study and what you are looking ahead in terms of cultural approach in research.
Hang on a second. Abtar is heading out to a meeting. Abtar, you want to say goodbye before you head out to your meeting to everyone, and any comments you have?
Yeah, thank you, Kurt. First comment, Kurt, I mean, we have known each other for such a long time. I'm always amazed at how you are always so innovative with your classes. That's number one. Number two, it's nice to be connected to your students. I see such a variety in terms of their experiences, the concentrations they are in and stuff like that. So I wish you all the best, and you can never go wrong with Kurt, I think. I didn't. We had a lot that we learned from you. And Insung, thank you so much. I've already searched for you online, your article, and I'm going to read that. I would like to be looking at your skills on open thinking as well. And I did mention earlier the mindset was an issue. So maybe this is one connection that I'm getting from this wonderful class. All the best. And we'll catch up again. Kurt,
yeah,
if this is the timing, then it's good for us in Malaysia. We can join you.
Yeah, so Abtar was here in 2000, approximately 1999, 2000, 2001 with her family, and went back to the Open U of Malaysia to help create the Open U of Malaysia in Kuala Lumpur. And Abtar, our EDD program, our doctorate, education doctorate, has students from all over, all disciplines. Yeah. Radiology, you name it, they're coming from it's unlike I've ever seen before. So many different disciplines. It was a challenge, but it's also fun. So, and Abtar, before you go, tell us where you work now. What's the name of the institution you work at?
Okay, so I'm at the Asia Pacific Institute of Asia Pacific University of Technology and Innovation. It is in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I'm trying to build their open distance learning, e-learning, hybrid learning. As I said, all kinds of things that are happening here. Recently, hybrid learning became a very important learning environment for us. So we assist our lecturers in face-to-face physical online, synchronous, asynchronous, hybrid learning, 4 different kinds of learning environments. With a lot of processes that we have built up. I'm leading the digital learning hub here. And also as UNESCO chair, I'm also coming up with new projects. So in a month's time, we are having Professor Edward Roback. He is a STEM specialist, Megan. He will be coming here to Asia Pacific University. He is our partner as a UNESCO chair, and he will be conducting lessons with students and teachers on how to integrate sustainable development goals into curriculum. So that is the one project we are doing.
I'll have to,
we are working on.
I'll have to stop you there because Insung's going to have to leave in a minute.
Oh,
She
okay.
needs to answer that last question.
Bye.
I'll just mention that Abtar was dean at bin Muhammad University, Smart University in Dubai before this. So she's worked in a couple of different places. So thanks for coming, Abtar.
Thank you, Kurt, and all the best. Thanks, Insung. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So
Bye.
Insung, you want to try and answer the question from Omida before you go? Or
Yeah, I just placed the link to the handbook, the recent one, which is all open to the public. So you can just download and you can see the early printed early version of the handbook. I think the question was a very challenging question because there are many points that I said in the book. One thing is that, you know, when we think about culture, we feel like culture influences us, influences learners, influences. So, but that's not true. I think we also react proactively, engage in cultural influences. So my point was to pay attention to those that multidimensional cultural aspects, not just how we are influenced by culture, but also how we influence to each other. So that was the perspective from the researcher. You doubt of cultural influences. There might be individual influences and something else. So I think that's the kind of key point, one of the key points in the book. Thank you.
thank you. Anyone have a final thank you or comment or anything they want us before we say goodbye? Sunmei, you want the last word? Sunmei might be frozen handing out Halloween candy. Sunmei?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
My
I hear you
internet
now.
is not stable, sorry. Thank you. That's great. Thank you for your great advice and then presentation and concept. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice to meeting you all.
Sunmei is my TA, and she's collecting our dissertation data on this class on the discussion forum. So she's really tremendous support, and maybe you guys can meet up in Korea when she visits Korea sometime.
Yeah, let me know.
Family. So thanks, Insung. It's been a real pleasure having you and come with us tonight. And you know, we'll be sending more thank you notes to you down the road, and I hope you come back again soon. So I'm going to stop the recording in a second. Let's say stop the recording. We're ending to the